Recently, an interesting topic came up. Can you get rich or wealthy after 50? Is it even a possibility? Let's discuss. David Bowie, the great rock and pop singer, said that aging is an extraordinary process in which we get to become the people we were always meant to be. And I think that's very true. When we start out, we are usually one of two people, as I see it. We are either the type of person who goes for our goals, sometimes with reckless abandon and without much planning, but, we're goal setters and we just go for them. Maybe it'll work out. And then there's the type of people who put things off, right? They're a little bit more planned out and well-meaning, and they really are thinking, how am I going to do this? And they just keep putting it off and keep putting it off and keep putting it off. I think it was John Lennon who said, life is what happens when you're busy making plans. Well, a lot of times we spend a good portion of our life in our younger years making these plans. We want to be successful. We want to do things, but we just end up living life. We get into our schooling and we get into our jobs and our lives, and all of a sudden we wake up and maybe you're 35. Maybe you're watching this right now and you're 45. Or maybe you're watching this and you are over 50 and you are really starting to wonder, hold on a second. Is there time for me to become wealthy? Can I still, quote unquote, make it in the world? Can I have a successful future? The truth of the matter is, absolutely, people have been doing it for years. I mean, currently, if you look at him right now, there is a NHL player who should be retired by all rights. He has played with every team from the New York Rangers to the Boston Bruins, and he just signed a new contract at 53. Jaromir Jagr is still playing ice hockey. I mean, this guy's still out there taking the hits and giving the blows at 53 years old on a skating rink. Absolutely, undeniably amazing. When you look at the bodybuilder, there's a famous bodybuilder by the name of Ernestine Shepherd. She didn't even start bodybuilding until she was 56 years old. And as a result, she ended up in the Guinness Book of World Records as a world-renowned bodybuilder. I think all of us have visited a KFC at one point or another, and we know who the Colonel is. Colonel Sanders did not even franchise Kentucky Fried Chicken until he was 63. You see, he actually hit retirement age, and he got his first Social Security check, and it was just a pittance back then. And he said, I can't live off of this. How am I going to live? I mean, I need more money. And he looked around in his life for things of value. And he said, the only thing I really have is this chicken recipe that everyone seems to love, that he was selling at his, roadside chicken service station stand. And he basically ended up selling that. It took him years to do, but he was 63 when he finally was able to, make the big bucks and franchise what we know as KFC. And now, another thing comes to mind, Phil Mickelson. For those of you that follow golf, Phil did not win the PGA championship until he was 50 and cash himself a pretty tidy check as well. I think people have always managed to do it. We just don't see it as the norm. The good thing about success is it leaves clues. There is a roadmap. If someone before you has achieved what you're looking to achieve, then you can also achieve. You just have to literally look at their map. Success leaves clues. The question now is not if you're going to do it, is how are you going to do it? Not if, but how. You want to create wealth. You want to create more success in your life. Maybe you have hit 45, 50 years old, maybe even older. Can it be done? Yes, but how are you going to do it? Well, the first thing you're going to have to realize is we have to change our mindset. I think the saying is, if you continue to do what you've always done, you continue to get the results you've always gotten. So you've thought a certain way up until this point. And that means your thinking has been that certain way, and you've gone through your life. You've had some wins, you've had some losses, you've made some money, you've spent some money, but now you're thinking more long term, and maybe you haven't thought like this yet. So you are going to have to change your mindset. It's sort of like going to the doctor after 50, right? When you're young, you go in for your checkups, everything's okay, they send you out the door. One day you hit 45, 50 years old, you go into the doctor, and the doctor says, hey, listen, you've got a little bit of extra weight, you have a lot of visceral fat surrounding your organs, and you just took a stress test and you didn't do so good on, and you came up to the second floor of this office and you were already out of breath from the 2 flights of stairs. Your arteries are not doing so so good. Your health is not so great, and you're at risk for a stroke or a heart attack, God forbid. And he says you have to change your diet. Like right now, if you do not change your diet and you do not start eating right and exercising and doing the right things, there may be no turning back. It is, at condition critical. Well, it's the same thing with our finances. If you're 50 plus years old and you don't have much in savings, maybe you don't own a property yet, maybe you never invested at all, you're working, you feel like you're doing okay, like you're getting by, you're paying your bills, you're paying your rent, you're eating, you're sleeping. But you have hit condition critical, and you do have to change something immediately if you are going to make a big difference. So we said it's not a question of if, but how are you going to do it? So how are you going to do it? Well, for starters, you're going to make the best chess moves you have ever made. Okay, you do not have time. You don't have the luxury of time to screw around anymore. Your chess moves do not have to be perfect, but they do have to be great. They have to be really, really good chess moves because you can't afford to lose out at this point. Okay, so no buying that boat from your best friend, and you're not signing up for any MLMs, and you're definitely not buying a timeshare. But what you are going to do is you're going to do the first thing that you have to do in order to prepare at this point in your life. And you're going to have to cut back on your expenses. This has a lot to do with our habits. But of course, in a world where we go out and we sign up for memberships that we don't use, we go out and sign up for subscriptions that we don't actually need, but we would like to have and that we want. And, we have Uber Eats delivered a little too often, or maybe, buy coffee when we could make it at home, and maybe go out on a weekend when really once in a while we could easily stay in and enjoy a movie in. We're spending more than we have to. So cutting back your expenses at this point is going to happen because you've hit this condition critical, and you are going to have to do it with marine training like intensity. You're going to have to be serious about it. You've made a decision to change your mindset, and you're going to cut back on your expenses. This doesn't mean you're not going to live. This doesn't mean you're not going to eat out once in a while. This doesn't mean that you're not going to supply both your needs and your wants, but you're going to cut back on the wants, and you even are going to actually shrink your needs. How are you going to do that? By doing the second thing you have to do, which is get on a budget. Up until this point, I can almost guarantee if you don't have any savings and you don't own a property and you haven't done the right things with your money, even though you may be working, you probably also haven't been on a budget. What is a budget? It's just you telling your money where to go instead of sitting around wondering where it went. You're going to have categories, and you do have to pay yourself something, and you have your needs, you have your wants, you have your savings, you have your long-term investments, you have your categories. It's different for everyone, but still you're going to have to budget. If you have not budgeted up until this point, you are now going to divide up your money into 100% base budgeting and put the money into a category until it's all accounted for. That's all it is. And you're going to shrink your wants category and maybe not put much into the wants category for a while. This is something you will now need to do. Remember how I said you were going to have to focus with marine training like intensity? Well, your wants category is the fun category. These are the things I want. This is the stuff I want to do or want to purchase, but that is going to have to shrink. But also your needs are going to have to shrink. That category, you're probably sometimes putting things from the want into the needs category and telling yourself, well, this is a need. I need this. I need, whatever it is, internet or a movie channel or a subscription or to buy this item on Amazon. The point is, when your needs shrink, your options expand. So shrinking your needs for a little while means your future is going to be so much better because it's going to be an expanded future where you're going to be able to fund the wants. Maybe some of the things you want now, that's just going to come a little bit later. But I want to say that again, when your needs shrink, your options definitely expand. And this is something that you're going to have to do right away during your budgeting process. The third thing that you're going to have to do, and you might be surprised to hear me say it in this way, but I'm surprised to hear me say it in this way. You're going to have to invest, but you're going to have to invest aggressively, which normally I don't recommend, right? And I know what you're saying. Well, Daniel, when you invest aggressively, doesn't that put my money at more risk? Aren't I absorbing more risk? 100%. There's no way to aggressively invest without taking on more risk. You can take on plenty of investments that are extremely low risk and considered outstandingly safe. But if you're going to make more money, you have to invest aggressively. Now, there's a couple ways to do this. The first way is you can just invest aggressively and accept the risk. Right? You could say, okay, I'm going to put $50 a week away. I'm just going to cut that right off the top. No matter what, I'm going to put $50 a week away. And this investment should yield me, 15 or 20 or $25 a week in returns. That sounds exciting. That sounds great. However, you could wake up after several months or even a year or whatever amount of time, and you could find that your $50 a week that you have put away is now dwindled down to 40 or 45. You actually don't have any returns and you've lost some money. Why? Because we call that a high risk investment, which I don't ever recommend. So how can we make money, invest aggressively, and still not be at high risk? What if I told you I want you to put $50 a week away? But at the end of that week, every week, like clockwork, it was going to be $60. That $50 was going to become $60. I mean, raise your hand if you would like that to happen, okay? I would like that to happen. Well, then why don't you just do it? Why don't you, instead of putting $50 a week away, put $60 a week away? Or put 65, or put 70. That becomes part of your return. It's still your money, but you are putting more soldiers, more dollar bills to work for you to earn you more interest and earn you back on your investment. And you're going to still be able to put this money into a very safe place, whether it's a dividend yielding fund or whether it's a Roth IRA or whether it's a high yield savings account. You're going to be able to put the money in there and watch it grow. And part of the growth that's happening is coming from you. You are taking on the risk and you are absorbing the risk through just putting a few more dollars every single week away to work for you. It's still your money. It's still right there, but now you're putting it into a much more stable and safe investments. And there's lots of funds that you can look into that you can do that with, but you're funding this, you're putting the money in, and it's all going to work for you at a greater rate. Okay, it's just more money earning more interest for you. So you're absorbing the risk and you're still being very aggressive. You see, you have time at 50 years old. I mean, a lot of people talk about this early retirement business, which I don't subscribe to. But, if you said, okay, I'm 25 and I want to be retired by 40, I mean, that's only 15 years. I mean, that would be massively early retirement. But can you go to work at 25 and technically put enough money away that it will earn some interest and carry you later on in life in 15 years? Of course you can. Like you can. 15 years is still quite a chunk of time to be investing and putting money away, especially if you're doing it safely and earning a good rate of interest. Even just the S&P 500 will return you between 10 and 15%. If you're 50 years old and you plan on retiring at 65, well, there's your 15 years. I mean, it could still easily be done. Maybe you feel like you've made some bad chess moves previous to this, but you still have plenty of time. But now, like I said, we are at condition critical. You do have to do the right things and your moves have to be outstanding at this point, so you can do it. I want to make one more suggestion, and I haven't really talked about this much yet. Maybe I'll do a whole video on it in the future. I'm sure I will, because many people ask me about this. If you haven't purchased a property, and you are 50 years old, maybe you're thinking you can't purchase a property. Maybe you're thinking, well, I'm past my prime. There's no way I'm going to buy a house now and get a big mortgage and all of that. Unless you plan on living in a cave or a cardboard box during your retirement, you're always going to need a roof over your head. So my suggestion might be to go into something small but yet easy maintenance, like maybe a 1 or 2 bedroom condo. And how you would easily do that is through a process called owner carry. A lot of people don't know about owner carry and they never explore it. Banks will never teach you about owner carry. Most realtors will never mention it, even though they know about owner carry. Owner carry properties are an easy way for someone to get into real estate. I've been buying owner carry since the very beginning. I purchased my first property at 23 years old, and it was an owner carry property. What that basically means is that someone bought a piece of property. Maybe they bought it 20 years ago. Maybe they bought it 40 years ago. But when they bought that condo that you're looking at, it was $59,000. Now, 30 years have gone by and the realtor and the market are telling them, hey, it's worth $250,000. So they have all this equity. They've earned all this money. Now maybe they're retiring. Maybe they're going to move into a home. Maybe they're going to move into their children's home and their children are going to take care of them. Maybe it was a couple that owned the house and one of them unfortunately passed away and the wife just doesn't want the responsibility of the whole house or condo or townhouse or whatever it is. So they decide to sell it. But since they don't need the money, they don't need all the money, and what they're really looking for at this point is a steady stream of income in their retirement, they decide to own or carry. And they can make more money because they act like the bank and they actually make the interest. And that's why this is attractive to someone selling their home by themselves. I have worked owner carry deals even with people who didn't list the property as owner carry. But when I found out their situation, I said, hey, do you want to make a little more interest, or I could just give it to the bank? Do you want to get a better price for the property and still cash out? And they would say yes. And what happened is they would create the note. Many times these are low cost or no cost to get into, and they will do it with very little down because they're really looking for the income. They're looking for the payment. And these deals are everywhere. I travel a lot, and one of the things I'm into is real estate. So if I'm in Tennessee, I just kind of Google the market really quick and look at some properties. I just happened to be in Texas a few days ago, and I actually went out looking at properties, like physically went to look at some properties. And the great deals that I found was absolutely amazing. They are out there, and these owner carries are everywhere. How you would get into it is maybe with a very low down, and in many cases, like I said, no down, and you would begin paying the mortgage on that. Now, you're probably paying rent somewhere. And recently, a friend of mine came to me, and I showed him this option because he's paying rent, and for the rent he's paying, he could be paying a mortgage on a condominium. I said, listen, this particular one over here, all in with HOA, taxes, insurance, everything, is going to be about $1,400 a month. That's what you're paying where you are for rent. The only difference is you'd have a 2-bedroom condo. And I said, you're a single guy. Do you know anyone looking for a place? And he said, oh, all the time. Even people I work with are coming to town sometimes for 1 or 2 months at a time, and they're looking for short-term rentals. I said, well, if I were you, I rent out that other room, maybe at something like $200 a week, $800 a month. That's a very fair rent. And you might even be able to grab another, $20 a week towards utilities or anything like that. So for $800-900, someone could rent from you. That's paying almost your whole mortgage on this property, but you are building equity, something you've never built before. Yes, you can go out and you could probably rent the same place totally for $1,200, whereas owning it might cost $1,400, but the $1,200 is 100% wasted. When you pay it, it's completely gone. I mean, not totally wasted in the sense that you carried yourself, it was a roof over your head, you had a place to live, but you don't have anything. When you own the property, even buying something, later on in life, you're making money in 2 ways, and you're ensuring that you have a roof over your head in your future. The first way you're making money is you're paying off the mortgage, so you're building up equity. The second way you're making money is through inflation. See, that property, just like for the original owner, is probably going to go up in value. And real estate has been the most stable thing to earn people money over the years. It has made more millionaires and now billionaires than almost any other market outside of tech. So why wouldn't you want to buy into that? If you invest in this property and 10 years go by, 15 years go by, now you've got it paid off. Not only did your tenant, if you have a renter, like in this case of my buddy, you get it completely paid off, but also you now have the equity in the house and you have the capital gains because it's gone up in value because of inflation. So there's a lot of benefits to owning. And if you feel like you can't own, owner carry is an outstanding way to get into property, really at any age, but especially after 50, because it's very easy to get into with a low or no down. So I guess the answer to the question, can you build wealth or get wealthy after 50 would be yes, but you're going to have discipline. So you're going to have to create better habits than you've ever had. And remember, every chess move counts now. Every chess move has to be great. You can't afford to make too many mistakes because you don't have the luxury of time that you have maybe when you're 20 5 years old. As far as, getting older, a lot of people are very concerned with, well, I'm too old, I'm past my prime, I can't teach an old dog new tricks. But, my thoughts on aging is it seems the best way to live a long life. So I'm going to go with that. My name is Daniel F. Margasa. You are watching The Almost Criminal Millionaire. And if you enjoy learning about the topics of finance, money, and how to improve the health and wealth of your bank account, then please like and subscribe for more.